Hi everyone. I'm here with Mirjam van Ruth, who is one of my colleagues on the Academy Retreat team, which is fantastic. She's also a certified soul-based coach, and she does, I was going to say she does the psychedelics, but
She
I think
does
she
it as
probably
well, but she
does, but
facilitates.
she facilitates personal development journeys using psychedelics as well.
Exactly. Yeah.
It's good to have you here, Mirjam. Welcome.
Thank you. Nice to be here.
And yeah, we're going to have this conversation in this series of conversations that we're having about how we navigate these times. Unprecedented,
Yeah.
um, interesting, stormy, all sorts of things. So there's a lot of wisdom throughout our communities, not just
Mhm.
ours. And it's really helpful to talk about this.
Yeah.
What are the things that support us in navigating these times? So, Miriam, maybe you want to kick off and share.
Mm. First of all, I think it's really great that you're doing these conversations and to really point our attention to the fact that these are unprecedented times and that they require something else from us. And I think one of the main things for me is what it needs is it really asks for us to be very grounded in ourselves, to be resourceful. So when I'm thinking about it, I think one of the main things for me is really to make sure that I am resourced. And that means I get enough sleep, that my food is okay, so my body feels good. When I'm not tired, I can handle a lot more things than when I'm tired. Then there is this like, so it's really like my number one priority to look after my, in a way, sort of personal hygiene. So the intake of everything I have of sleep, of food, but also what type of news do I take in?
What kind of meals? Is that what you said? Yeah.
News,
Oh, news.
news.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Yes.
So I do watch the news. I know I don't watch it actually. I never watch it because that's too much. I read the news. Um, but I don't do it all the time, and I only do it when I feel like I'm okay in a good space to read it. I keep track of it, but I try not to get lost in any rabbit holes. It's very tempting, and I think what is also very tempting is to go and you see something, you read something, and to entertain in the drama of it. So to form an opinion, to have a judgment, or to think, see, this is what's happening, to wind up. So what I'm really trying to do is to have as neutral a stand as I can be without losing my own opinion, of course, or my own way of seeing things. But I really try to look at the news and not go into this mindset because that's I see so many people doing that. And if I do it personally for myself, it really winds me up. And it brings me to this space of uh, contraction. And I really feel we need spaciousness in this whole in these times.
Mm.
So
Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah. And I think everyone listening is going to recognize that feeling of contraction because it's really easy to get into that state at this point, right?
yeah,
It's interesting. I'm listening to you and I'm really reminded of like this is something that a lot of people have shared about the resourcedness, so the physical and also the social resourcefulness, so that we see people that nourish us
also yeah,
and how super important that level is. Like take the best care of ourselves so that we have more capacity to be with what is. And then when you're talking about the news and really choosing how you consume it or um, I'm just noticing something inside of me and I don't know whether it's something that you recognize or other people recognize that is about oh but I do want to take my responsibility
I
and
know this
that's it.
one. Yeah,
And I just realized that as you were talking that getting wound up and contracted is not a requirement for taking action.
no,
It's actually possible to kind of see and recognize what's happening and at the same time decide to go and march in a protest or write
absolutely,
your politicians. But we don't have to do that from that inner stance of fear, contraction, anger. Because these are messengers, right? Our emotions are messengers. They're kind of
Yeah,
doing signaling like, hey, this is not okay. Something needs to happen. And it's so we don't have to stay in that emotion. And thank you, Miriam. That's like a super useful thing for me to just realize in this moment.
yeah. And I think it does make a real big difference. But also,
Mm,
I think gives me the opportunity to be really open to what is really happening. Because the news is very directive, right? And
yeah.
it's very easy to be be brought into a certain thought pattern. And I do want to I always have a desire to understand what's really going on. So I'm also reading threads from people who are looking at a completely different way at things. And not because I agree with them, but because I'm really curious what makes these people tick. And I think that also helps in staying open a little bit
Mm.
and trying not to get absorbed into that or to take a stance. And sometimes things are also not what they seem. And indeed, the other thing is, yes, we can still take our responsibility. But it's really the place where we do this from.
Yeah, that makes a big difference in our own energy system, but also, which means it makes a big difference in how we can utilize our power, right? Our because
Absolutely.
if we're stuck in the loops of anger or fear or despair or overwhelm, it takes so much energy to do that, to be in that state all
Yeah,
the
and we
time.
become very narrow focused.
Yeah, yeah.
It's very difficult then to see what is really going on. And I think truth is a very difficult thing at the moment.
Mm,
Maybe always was, but at this moment particularly.
yeah,
So it's that's also a thing, right? You don't want to get stuck and really like,
yeah.
yeah, go in and bury yourself in a certain position.
Yeah, it's a very good point because I think probably everyone knows that when we're in a high stress situation, we literally lose connection with I think it's the prefrontal cortex, like our ability to learn and to see more connection. So we get into the more, the older parts of the brain that are much more, yeah, fight, flight,
Yeah,
and freeze regulated. And we literally use capacity to deal with things. Yeah.
yeah.
Mm, great. So make sure that you're resourced
Mhm.
on a physical level, on a social level, maybe also on an inner level. And this is part of what we do with soul-based coaching, right?
Absolutely on an inner level. Yeah,
Yeah, to really make sure that we have access to the power, the trust, all the things that we
yeah.
need as an embodied resource. It's something that is not just in our mind or just the result of mantra or like oh God, what's the word? Um, Never mind. Um, brain in
Something.
action. Brain in action. Um, oh, super annoying.
Yeah, I think what happens when we do this, for me, this not trying not to judge too much, right? So
Mm,
it helps me stay out of drama. It also helps me prevent becoming cynical because that's such a hardened stance, right? And I want to be able to be open and to connect with people because I do believe that in these times, community is one of the most important things.
yeah,
Really
absolutely.
cherishing what is here now.
And is it what does that look like for you when you cherish community?
But it's on multiple levels, really. So it's first of all very simple in my neighborhood, right? Building my connections with my neighbors, making sure I feel safe in my environment, and that we look after each other. I think that's already one sort of very basic step.
Mm,
And the other one is really connecting with like-minded people, talking about these things, but also really being in a community where we do the inner work, where we really work on our own patterns and our own trauma and anything that is there. And to support each other in that and to also really hold each other in that. Because that's
mm,
sort of, I think that increases our trust in humanity. Seeing these sort of things on a small scale, on a slightly bigger scale, I think that really it does something for our nervous system.
mm,
And a lot of these situations we have at the moment in the world, in my opinion, are caused by trauma and
mm,
unresolved trauma. So yeah, for me, that is so important.
mm,
And even if we do it on our mini scale and there's a ripple on effect, that will have an effect.
mm. Yeah, nice. Yeah, there's so much to gain by doing this. And I think it's reminding me a little bit of um, in personal development spheres. There's people that kind of go, well, you have to sort yourself out before you can have a good life or have relationships. And I don't think that's what you're saying at all.
No.
But it is that when we offer each other a chance to heal, and healing happens in connection, it's that we again that we build our capacity, but also we strengthen our relationships, and we just we see more and more nourishing relationships happening as we continue to do that. So it's not like oh, it's your fault, you have to heal first and then you can save the world kind of thing. It is the when we step into this together and are willing to look at these things without creating extra drama around it, but with step into communities or modalities that heal, that bring that inner resourcefulness, then other things can start to happen also in a collective
Exactly.
sphere.
Yeah. And I think it's very important that we accept also what is there. So this healing is so important, but I also sometimes see this narrative of you have to heal, and if you don't heal, that's why this and this doesn't happen.
Mm,
So I think we have to be very careful with that as well.
yeah,
So healing is something we all do together, and we're all failing at it, and we're all succeeding at it. And I think that is so important that it's also okay
yeah.
because it's not an easy journey.
No, it's not. And I'm glad you're saying this because I think from the work that we do, um, oh, it's interesting, isn't it? Because the intention is not necessarily to heal. The intention is to invite a different experience of life.
Yeah.
Um, and healing is kind of comes naturally with that. And that healing comes from starting with what is, like fully acknowledging, respecting, welcoming what is. And that's there's a paradox in that, right? It's like
Mm,
it's not the kind of healing that's like, oh, this isn't supposed to be there. Let's kind of pick it apart so it can leave. It's the let's welcome this fully again, without going into drama, but like just fully
yeah.
acknowledging what is. And what happens when we do that, when we fully acknowledge what is together, then automatically more of that Shakti energy, more of that life source energy starts to flow through, and that does create healing.
Yeah.
Um, it's so interesting, isn't it? Because when we're even saying something like seemingly simple like that, like healing has comes with a whole paradigm attached to it,
Yeah.
and it's important that we
Yeah,
that we
that we frame that correctly indeed. Because it's
yeah
also not about just going into the trauma all the time, which I see
no
a lot also in the psychedelic work I'm doing. I often see
mm,
people say, I want to heal, and they want to, what do you want from your journey? I really want to explore this trauma. And I
mm,
always say, where do you want to go to after that? And focus on that. And then if there's any trauma needs to be healed, it will come, but in that direction.
yeah
So I think it's also important
mm,
that we dream what our world could look like and what we really want. And if we start doing that more together, because I think we focus a lot on what is not there, right? We focus a lot on all the things that are not going well and on all the havoc there is. But what if we all dream up a beautiful world together and we start working towards that so we have a common vision? And even if we just have our own vision, right, of where we want to go as an individual, you will already create things around you because when you move, things around you move as well. We're all connected.
yeah. I love this. I love that you're bringing this up. It's the desired outcome in soul-based coaching. It's the point on the horizon. It's the magnet. It's also the point that can offer so much fuel, so much
Yeah,
possibility and connection just by having that in the frame. Even if sometimes you don't know how you're going to get there yet, but having that as a felt sense, like an embodied
yeah,
sense of where you want to go to, that dream, is a very powerful thing to do. It's actually the basis for the change work that we do in soul-based
it is.
coaching. Yeah. And it reminds me of actually in the Netherlands, one of my friends is organizing the Wel Festival.
I saw that. Yeah, I
Yeah.
love it. Yeah.
It's so anyone not speaking Dutch, might be a few. It's the festival which is celebrating what we do want. with lots of examples of people that are actually, yeah, taking steps, making waves. A lot of inspiration is going to be centered there today, that day. Um, and that's a fantastic example of bringing into focus what can be shared things. What are things that work, that give momentum towards that dream that we hold. And I was going to say secretly hold, but I think that's maybe part of it. It's that
Mm.
if we're
Yeah.
still dreaming, a lot of people hold it to themselves, maybe because they don't believe in it or it feels a bit vulnerable or it's hard to kind of share that out loud. But like,
Mm.
oh, let's start doing
Yeah.
that. Let's start seeing and sharing what we want to see and not just naming what it is that's problematic. Because I think that is very often what we see happen on social media. There
Absolutely.
is the calling out, and so let's start also with, hey, it can be like this.
Yeah. And on that, I think it's also very important to really see what is here already. Because we
Yes.
read the news, I have that sometimes. I read the news and I really feel this contraction. And I think, oh, really like this sort of fear which comes in because there's so much going on. And then I really think to myself, okay, what is really here now? And then I
Yes.
think, I have so much beauty around me. And there's also guilt associated with that. So that's
Mm,
another interesting thing to work with.
yeah.
But I really feel that, oh yeah, what is really happening right now, right here?
Yeah.
Instead of all these sort of fear thoughts. And so it's the combination of really, really being in the here and now. And where do you want to go to?
Yeah.
What
Yeah,
do we want?
exactly.
Yeah.
And what's essential in that? And I think what you're saying here is that what's here now. Um, that also is a very powerful way of anchoring your nervous system, right?
Mm,
So when I look around me and I check in with what's here now, there is quiet, there is beauty, there is spaciousness, there is
mm,
food, like, and all the things that I'm going to need today, tomorrow, they're all here. And yes, there's privilege attached to that. And I think that's the guilt that you were talking about,
absolutely.
right?
Yeah.
Yeah. And being aware that that is true and that my here and now is different from a lot of other people's here and now. Very interesting thing. Anyone oh, what was the website? I think it was howrichami.com. If you type in your income, you
Hmm.
see in which percentage of the world you are
Hmm.
corrected for purchasing power in your economy. And you just see, am I in the top 1%? Am I in the top 10%? And you're probably going to find out that you're at the top end
Mm.
if you're
Yeah.
listening to this.
Yeah.
And sure, there's differences, but we're in a pretty darn privileged space.
Yeah.
So taking that into account really can like comfort our nervous system, but also help us get clarity about the actions that we do want to take. Because that's part of what yeah, everyone has a different role to play. So
Yeah.
we all follow the call and we all do the biggest thing is to be um, faithful, like true to yourself and the calling that you feel. And I think we're in a time where fascism is rising, and the one of the main things, if we look at history in the 1930s, the reason it could is because a lot of people that were okay did not speak up or did not say anything until it was absolutely too late. So there is
Absolutely.
that too.
Yeah. Absolutely.
And I think
Yeah.
that's something that and we can do that from a more or less relaxed nervous system, right? When we
Absolutely. Yeah.
can balance that. Actually, I think that's a brilliant practice that's coming out of this, Miriam.
Mhm.
Being in the how can we relax our nervous system
Yeah.
and not escape the realities of this time frame?
Yeah.
And
And
that
that's
doesn't
it's not
mean
easy. I
it's
don't
not,
find that
no.
easy. And also, I know we touched on guilt already. I think that is a big part of that whole process. And I think we sometimes subconsciously do a lot from that place as well,
Mm,
where we start contracting and therefore we start protecting ourselves. But I
yeah,
think it's also really important to acknowledge it
yeah, yeah, absolutely.
and to see what we can do. And even if it's indeed in your own circle,
Yeah,
right? There's always ripples. I
absolutely.
really believe in ripples.
Yeah, 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 absolutely. They're gorgeous.
Mm.
Mm, yum. Okay. And yes, it's not easy, as you said. That's for me, it's a practice. It's like it's like spiritual practice. It's like the how do I want to relate to the world kind of
Yeah.
practice, which
How do you do that?
um, so it is, meditation practice is not easy either, right?
No.
Um, like actually sitting down, taking the time, it's not easy, but then also being in the space of meditation. Um, what we're doing there is practicing the way that we're paying attention to things. And we're practicing where we pay attention to things. So, from what perspective we do that. And for me, these kinds of practices are the same. So, in the sense of what you're saying about making sure that your nervous system is as relaxed as it can be, doesn't get hijacked by the thoughts that we have about things.
Mm,
And at the same time, kind of go, okay, so if these are the thoughts that I have, what is the action that I want to take? How do I want to show up today? And it can be small things,
yeah.
and it can be really, it's for me, I find it very valuable to go, okay, and how can I do that outside of my own bubble too?
Mm,
So to just kind of see where can I increase my capacity to kind of leave nuggets
mm,
or
yeah.
contribute other conversations, support other conversations. And what I'm going to add to that now is, can I do that without getting sucked into the vortex of emotion that is so easily attached to that?
Yeah.
So I'm thinking there's a couple of people that I follow on LinkedIn, for example. They make really good points. They're very um, uh, good analysis of what's happening and kind of raising awareness. And so these are great people for me to see. I love responding to their posts.
Yeah.
And so that's a moment where I can really check. So when I'm reading posts on LinkedIn, when I'm leaving comments, where am I doing this from? Can I do this from a relaxed nervous system and not dilute the message, right? Because
Yeah.
we can do both. We can speak power, but we don't have to do it from being wound up or overwhelmed.
Exactly. And I think that is critical, right? And
Yeah,
that's also what I'm trying to do. I'm also trying to follow quite a lot of people with more positive messages,
yeah,
reinforce that more, and but also need people who are look really analyzing it from a very clear, grounded point of view.
yeah, yeah. Great. So yeah, that's for me is spiritual practice. And it
Yeah,
can also be when if someone's reading a newspaper or um is to also to go in with how is my nervous system now? Read some of it or listen to some of it and keep checking
absolutely.
how is my nervous system responding.
Yeah,
Um, Knowing that the news is colored
yeah.
and doesn't give all the perspectives and all of that, but like being in that space. Well,
Yeah,
you're
and
saying,
being curious, right? Being
yeah,
curious about, hey, what's going on?
yeah,
Why is this happening in my system?
yeah,
Because I
yeah.
sometimes have that when I read something. I yesterday had it with a post, and I really it was a horrendous picture I saw, and I was like, and I felt everything contracting, but in a way that I was like, it's a bit over the top reaction. I
Mm,
really had to stay with that for a while to see what was going on in my system. So this curiosity,
mm.
being with it, and then also just shaking it off.
Yes. Oh, nice one. And I'm like, knowing you a little bit, I'm thinking maybe music
With some
comes in.
music, absolutely.
Yes, you're our resident DJ, aren't you? That's
I love that.
part of your many things that you contribute. But uh, that's
Yes.
gorgeous. Yeah, because shaking is a great way to get rid of excess adrenaline, right? We can look at
Yeah,
our dogs and the way that
they
they
do
do
it.
that. Yeah. But it is, yeah, it's very, very useful and worthwhile.
Yeah,
Mm. Great. So lots of different nuggets here, right? So resourcefulness from the very practical, physical, to
yeah,
the more inner work and the social dimensions of it. Um, 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 really paying attention to what's here now
yeah,
and being curious about that.
yeah,
There's also reaching out into your neighborhood and getting outside of your bubble and
yeah.
being
Being an
curious.
active part of your own community because that gives safety. That
Yeah.
really gives safety, and not just for you, but also for the people around you.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. Um, yes, there's even people that say that community is the only value that can't get lost. When we
I
think
like that.
about how we
But I think
can,
it's super important.
yeah, no, I think you're right.
Yeah. And that's something I actually do a lot. I stand up here in the community, so I organize things for the community. I'm doing some volunteer work, and we're trying to
Mm,
get different groups of people together for things.
yeah.
And that's really it starts to build this net, this yeah, weave this net. And I feel that it really does something to people because you
What's your,
feel more safe in your environment. You feel safer in your, and
yeah,
then you start looking differently at the world.
yeah, absolutely. What's your favorite thing to do in your community? Just a practical example if people are like, but what? But why?
Well, we have this beautiful old building here, which is called the Lekpoort, which is a sort of big gate where an old gate for the city. And there are two big rooms there. They used to be prisons, by the way, in
Oh,
the old
right.
days. But now they're sort of used as a sort of community space. And so there's something behind it, and you can rent it for a very low amount. So I'm renting it for my women's circles, but also I really think with them, what can we organize here? And like last week, we actually did a full cleanup of this space because we felt it needed some love and some care. So we spent the whole Saturday cleaning it up so it would be more inviting, and it
Mm.
would really be, because we really want this to be like a place where people can come together, connect. It's a yeah, low threshold because it doesn't cost a lot of money. Everybody knows it, so that's something I do
Nice.
and I
Yeah.
enjoy.
Yeah. So I'm thinking this is probably a medieval gate, kind of like a really old one. Yeah, yeah,
Beautiful old
exactly,
gate. Yeah,
exactly. Yeah, beautiful. Great. So there's an example.
yeah,
And
very simple.
Yeah, absolutely. And I love that this also is a theme that's coming back in multiple conversations. So I hope that this can also inspire you when you're watching to think about what is something that really that I might enjoy, and also help build these community
Yeah.
relationships. Gorgeous. Okay, I was trying to do an overview, so we got
Oh
that
yeah,
in.
sorry.
No, that's okay.
Good job.
Shaking, dancing, that practice
Yeah,
of how can you regulate your nervous system and look at what's here without being, um, yeah, without going into the emotional overwhelm drama response,
yeah.
um, and being curious about what's happening right now. Um, all right. I think there's been so many things in this conversation that are
Yeah, interesting. Yeah.
useful and interesting. Yeah. Thank you very much, Miriam,
Well,
for
thank
your
you
share.
to let me
And
think about this and talk about this and form
yeah,
my thoughts further. Yeah.
yeah, you're very welcome. If this has been inspiring to you, we want to hear. So let us know. And until we meet again, thank you, everyone.
Thank you.